Perfect. Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the second Quantum Village Oxford Union-style debate. Now, why are we having an Oxford Union-style debate? Oxford Union implies a lot of formality, and we need this formality because I'm going to give you a motion that you are going to vote for in a little bit. And in order to vote, you need to be informed on both sides of this argument. I think Oxford Union-style debates force us all to open our minds and make sure that we're examining every aspect of this. I'll give you the motion in just a second, and I'll tell you that although there's a lot of rules and formality, there should also be a bunch of fun and levity. You guys should feel free to argue your side of this any way you can. Use any facts, use humor. As long as you call each other my honorable opponent, you can say anything you want to about the other. And as long as you call me Mr. Chairman, you can say anything you want to about me. But let me give you the motion that we're going to vote on. I'll tell you the 3 ways that you can interact with these guys. Number 1, interact by listening, because you're going to vote at the end. But also, there's going to be questions and answers at the end of this. We're going to ask both of them to argue their side of the motion for 5 minutes, and then there will be rebuttals between them. I will be a timekeeper to make sure they don't go too long. Let me give you the motion. The motion is, this village, the Quantum Village, believes that due to the power of quantum computers, post-quantum cryptography and preparing for this world of quantum computing requires more emphasis today in the enterprise. We're going to argue for and against that. Now, for will be David Joseph against Mark Carney. And the for argument will start with 5 minutes, and then 5 minutes for the against. And again, I'll be timekeeper. So thanks. Guys, go ahead.
For always goes first.
Okay, I feel as though Mark is at a slight disadvantage because I've had about an hour on top of my 5 minutes. Let us forget the post-quantum part of it. Cryptography is about enforcing policies on our data. Those policies should work under any scenario that we subject them to, right? That is the fundamental guarantee, and that is fundamentally what cryptography strives to deliver. Don't think of these as quantum-resistant systems. They are resistant systems. That is what we are striving to find, right? Psych and Rainbow failed because they were not resistant to quantum computers. They weren't resistant to laptops with single cores. Meanwhile, classical Macalise, right? That is around. That has been around since 1978. It is as old as public key crypto itself, and it has weathered the storm. Right. This is a good crypto system. It is not. It does it an injustice to call it a post-quantum crypto system. It is a very, very sound crypto system that has withstood cryptanalysis for 40 years. The only reason why it is now coming to light is because it had, there was another system which actually performed a little bit better, and so there was never a compelling reason to use that one. The first and foremost, cryptography is about enforcing the policies. Second, and second most, it is about the performance. NIST has stated as much. Number 1 comes security. Number 2 comes performance. And number 3 come other considerations like, is the implementation so difficult that it's just going to be botched? For isogenies, they're very, very, very complicated. So I would say that is cryptography ready, is post-quantum cryptography ready for enterprises? And the answer is almost trivially yes. Enterprises face new threats year on year. Everybody who wants to use cryptography and look after their data faces new threats year upon year. And what they have to think about is adapting to those threats. It is not like cryptography is a static field, right? As we had, the question that we had earlier from the gentleman in the front row. The parameters for RSA have increased over time, right? From 512 to 2048, and maybe soon it'll be 4096. That is widely used. Every time a new threat evolves, we must find an answer to that in the cryptographic realm. And so, are organizations ready to move towards post-quantum cryptography? Yes, because the threats move, and whether it is quantum or whether it is whether it is new classical algorithms, or maybe whether it's even new threat models outside of computation, physical access, the whole cybersecurity landscape. Cryptography is about making your systems and your information secure and adopting the latest and the most secure systems is what that is about. And the post-quantum moniker is a buzzword to get you all interested. Okay, yeah.
My learned friend is indeed very learned and has had many moments in the last hour to prepare. But I'm going to bring some very cogent arguments, I hope, against this motion of the village, even though I might have written it. So we do indeed have a way of encrypting things, and that way is potentially under threat. However, the fact that this threat is some time off does not necessarily mean that we should be doing much about it now. My learned friend said that threats have been moving. Threats move all the time. More important, more immediate threats move. There is also the matter of the difficulty of this particular endeavor. How are we going to enable these post-quantum cryptography? We're going to do it piecemeal. We're going to do it badly. We're going to mess it up. And then we're going to come back and hopefully get it right at the end. Why? Because that's generally how we've done things for a very long time. But does that mean that we have to put more effort into post-quantum cryptography when regular cryptography is possibly more broken? We have limited and finite resources in every enterprise. In every system where we wish to make it secure and we wish to have better configurations, we have many, many limitations on the time and effort that we can put into it. Remember, security is not a zero-sum game. Okay? Security is invisible when it's done well. It only goes wrong when you're the headline on the Wall Street Journal or New York Times. The issues that we are facing are in some ways total and are in other ways highly localized. My threat model is indeed not your threat model. It's not the threat model of my organization, nor any of the individual users that I manage. We are always dealing in many ways with the average. And unfortunately, I do not think that the motion for can be fully be said to be valid at this point in time. And the reason for that is that we do not yet have cryptography working properly, let alone post-quantum cryptography working properly. So maybe we should stop chasing these dreams, stop chasing these potential ghosts in the qubit, and maybe we should be focusing instead on the way in which we can improve the overall frameworks around cryptography. Post-quantum cryptography is not, I'm going to claim, against the motion of this village, which I helped run, is not yet ready. And actually, its being ready is not a priority. The regular CISO, the regular security manager, doesn't have the time to learn it. And what we have seen, bless you, sir, and what we have seen is that these ciphers are so experimental, they can be broken in a weekend to an hour on a basic laptop. Maybe we should focus more on building those things over time, not rushing into these great races with 4 stages over only 5 years. RSA had 40. The security grew over time as we understood more and more about the number theory, a thing that we have been researching for many, many years. And so I make the motion, possibly finishing a little early, I hope, but I make the motion that post-quantum cryptography is not necessary. What is necessary is better cryptographic thinking. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, now what we do is rebuttals. You heard the argument for the motion. You heard the argument against the motion. Now 2-minute rebuttals each.
Ladies and gentlemen, my learned friend here is a cryptographic exhibitionist. He does not care what happens to his data. He is quite happy for it to, he's the kind of person that waits for his car to break down on the side of the motorway before ringing up for an MOT. That does not mean that it is the right solution for the honest, hard-working man and woman and child in this country and around the world who feels entitled to a basic level of privacy. Now, for those people, like my learned friend, who are not fussed about these, these fundamental concepts that some people quite enjoy, that is fine. But don't use cryptography, right? Unless you are aiming for the highest standards, you should not be considering waiting. Now, the argument that, there are more important things going on in front of your nose. Nobody is arguing against that. The reason that standardization should occur is so that when the time comes, the world is ready to act, right? Any smooth transition process that has ever happened has had people thinking about it, doing other things, but thinking about it in the interim between going full throttle and beginning. Who here has been asked to complete a task with absolutely zero background or preparation and given a remarkably short deadline? How has it gone? Has it been an overwhelming success? Tell me about these stories afterwards. My learned friend here appears to have many of them, and I would like to hear more about them.
I'm glad that my learned friend has recognized the power of being prepared. I'm sure my learned friend brought a snorkel to DEF CON not anticipating a flood. It does not necessarily mean that having the snorkel was going to be a good idea or a bad idea. The flood came and the flood went. There is no guarantee that quantum is going to happen. There is only probabilities. There is very educated guesswork. I think that the lack of definitiveness, the lack of knowledge about things like scalable quantum computing works against the case for making PQC universal. My learned friend made the analogy with a car breaking down. But actually a better analogy would be that everyone's cars just crash into a wall. I don't think it will happen. We know for a fact that even if we did take all of the data and store it and then decrypt it later, as is one of the threat models that we are analyzing to make the case for post-quantum cryptography, there is no guarantee that that data problem you then have, because you've got everything, it's still the same size, it's just not encrypted anymore. Okay? Now, it's an intractable data problem. It's not going to be something that is going to be immediately available and indexable by an attacker. So even though things could be decryptable, might be decrypted, indeed might no longer have security, it is not necessarily the case that post-quantum is going to help. If anything, as we have seen with Psych, as we have seen with, what was the other one? Rainbow, thank you. Thank you for helping me make my own case. With Rainbow, these things are not ready, right? It is not a car breaking down, right? It is, a bicycle made of cheese and balloons. Thank you.
I can only admire the indefatigable optimism of my learned friend. Not only is he a cryptographic exhibitionist, he doesn't wear safety belts because he believes his cars will not crash into walls. He doesn't even bring snorkels to DEF CON. Where does it end? The worst case scenario from dedicating ourselves to post-quantum cryptography at this moment in time is that we started too early, right? If quantum computers never arrive, the whole point of post-quantum cryptography is that it's still resistant against classical, that it performs well, that it's secure, that we're able to enjoy the freedoms that cryptography affords us in the modern day and age. All of these things are not separated, there are not other things that we could be working on that are better. Building secure systems, everybody is pulling in the same direction. My learned friend is drawing false dichotomies between post-quantum cryptography and classical cryptography. And all I can say is I won't be driving with Mark Carney anytime soon.
I do congratulate my learned friend on a number of things. For example, he has exquisite taste in hair length, even if he does have the man bun of a hipster who believes in academic dreams and fancy that is post-quantum cryptography. The inflated egos that we see before us from indulging in this fancy are indeed found to be misplaced, I think. There is a lot of time and effort being put into this, when maybe we would be better off putting time and effort into not having problems, down the line that are as easy as it's broken on a laptop within an hour. What? What do you want? Rebuttal from the audience? When it's his turn, okay, well, it isn't win, so be quiet. Can I get those 10 seconds back? I have the 15 seconds back, thank you. So, there is also many other matters. My learned friend wishes us to carry not just snorkels and safety belts, but the kitchen sink, Swiss Army knives, and also, a subscription to the New York Weekly. We want to have everything. I get it. It is not feasible. It is not defensible to say that post-quantum must be implemented now, when we can barely get certificate management right as it is. Why would we want to add more complexity to this matter?
Rebuttals here, and then we'll ask for your points of information.
I've run out of things to say. Yeah, how many times can I... Right, yeah, let's hear it for the gentleman in the back. I'd like to devote the remaining 50 seconds of my minute to applause for the gentleman in the back.
That gentleman doesn't need it. I will make a very quick, shall we move to closing statements and then Q&A? Okay, so, closing statements from the opposition first then. Post-quantum cryptography does indeed offer solutions and does indeed make us face problems in the light of a verifiable threat. However, that does not mean that the fact that this threat is indeed many years away should distract us from the current day problems that we face on enterprise systems right now. Post-quantum cryptography is very nice. The mathematics is lovely. I say that as a mathematician. The practicalities are uncertain, the security is difficult if not impossible to prove, and there are no guarantees that can be made to an enterprise moving forward with this technology that are going to last and give the test of time. My argument against this particular motion simply stems from the fact that our lives are very difficult already. Privacy is hard. Managing data is hard. Collecting it is very easy. And we do not necessarily threat model well enough to know the appropriateness of these new solutions. They are too new, and they need much more testing. And for that reason, I make the motion against the village.
In summary, I believe that my learned friend makes extremely important points. There are many problems in the modern world, more than we can possibly deal with, right? In the daily life of a CISO, it is one problem after another. It is one fire drill after another. What we are asking this House to consider is not that we should be distracting and putting a new fire drill in the works and trying to reprioritize all of the incredibly important issues that already exist. What I am suggesting, what this House believes, is that we should keep an eye on the future, because we know the threat exists theoretically. We know that there are enormous technological challenges before this threat materializes. But unfortunately, while the timelines for standardization of PQC exist and are somewhat predictable, the timelines for leaps in quantum computing development are not foreseeable. If this comes about in, I don't know, the next 5 years, we will all be in a very, very difficult position. The argument that this House puts forth is that we should prepare. We should not distract ourselves, but we should keep one eye, looking somewhere else. We should keep one eye looking at threats in the future that we do not have any guarantee will not materialize too soon for us to be able to act on it. What we have presented today is the case that there are high-level things to do, ways to conceptualize what's going on, papers to read that only take a matter of hours to understand incredible amounts about the landscape and think about how one might act as the development of post-quantum cryptography and the development of quantum computing progresses, right? And so it seems obvious that for a group of people that believe extremely strongly about the rights and freedoms of individuals on the internet, to privacy, to authentication, to encryption, and to all of the other policies and things that cryptography can bring to us, the next and most existential threat is that of quantum. And by being prepared for quantum, we are prepared for classical as well. There will be road bumps along the way. Psych and the rainbow breaks demonstrate that adequately. And this is an argument for why we need to start thinking about these problems. Just think about us going through this entire process in a contracted amount of time, in 2 to 3 years, when our friends from Oxford Quantum Circuits or whatever outperform even the wildest predictions of their investors even. And just think about the absolute mayhem that we could be putting ourselves in by refusing to devote a small fraction of our time to this grave danger.
Thanks to both of you. Now it's your turn. Before we can vote, before we can ask you to vote, you get to ask questions. Now the Oxford Union Manual says these are points of information, but we call them questions and answers. Tell us if you who you direct it to, or if you have comments, and let's give Wynn the honor of the first question here. Wynn, and if you can.
What you were suggesting, Dr. Carney, is a repeat of a statement that was made 35 years ago when the warnings of cyber war, information warfare, and ultimately conflict in cyberspace was being made and ignored exactly the same reasons you're professing now. Please defend that position and why we should fuck it up the same way again.
We know the golden rule of DEF CON is indeed to not fuck it up. But I hold that we have more of a risk of fucking it up if we pursue these dreams and fancies too far without the critical analysis and the time taken to really understand what is going on underneath the hood. I think that these ideas are wonderful. They are lovely. The mathematics behind supersingular isogenies has kept me happy for many hours reading through it. But ultimately, thank you, but ultimately, it's for naught. Anytime.
All right, question, please.
We just do this, make it easier for others to hear. So actually directing it more toward the moderator of all things, my learned friend, about a necessary, Mr. Chairman, perhaps a necessary but insufficient proposal here before us all, because we haven't really looked at the dynamics and the depth of it. And that as a CISO, I have to struggle for funding every year, and it's uncertain perhaps whether this would occupy 0.1% of our time and money or 20 or 30%. For example, if you have a child at home, you're probably thinking about what to get them for the next birthday, but not right now. You tend to wait till a little bit later. And so as a result, perhaps our motion may be better coached in terms of a quantification so that we could decide whether, in fact, it's worth our time to go forward, not simply a binary, is it not zero?
Yeah. I think he's setting us up for the next debate, and we will take that up at the next debate, right? We can say that. But now we have a motion here that we want more input, questions, and comments on, unless it would take too long for us to redefine that motion, unfortunately. I would say, speaking of time, the Quantum Village operates on something called Planck time, really fast. So please give us your questions, point of order, input, really fast. Any others? One question here. Please come up to the mic. Please come to the microphone.
And this is directed to both loaded gentlemen. Do you believe that the engineering advances necessary to improve fidelity in quantum computers will also lead to dramatically increased classical computer power to allow for much larger classical keys.
Do I believe that the requirements to improve fidelity in quantum computing will lead directly to improvements in classical computing that can be then used to improve cryptanalysis? To improve key sizes for classical algorithms. I believe that the necessary developments for improving performance of quantum computers among coherence time, fidelities, circuit depth, all the rest of everything, I think they will bestow upon us unfathomable benefits in quantum technologies. How that translates to, the silicon-based architectures of classical computation, I don't see that there will be a direct link, but I think there will be other incredible benefits that potentially this House believes, or I believe, could actually outweigh the benefits of quantum computing in the same way that, the fellow who invented the laser at Bell Labs, all of his pals around him were laughing at him, and there was, what are you going to do with your beam of coherent light? And look who's laughing now. So that's why that is the potential that I believe quantum computing has for the for the things that we need to improve on. I don't necessarily believe it will directly lead to improvements in key sizes and so on and so forth.
My particular response, in line with my position on the motion of this particular debate, would be that such developments would be an expensive waste of time when compute is already so very cheap. The theory that supports many of modern keys and key lengths is very solid. We've had a lot of time to really mull over things, to really get to grips with things, and I think that actually we would be better off spending our time really debating how we do cryptography better and how we unify our approaches towards cryptographic configuration and the agility therein. I think that is a better use of that particular time.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think we should call it. I'm going to reread the motion to you so it's fresh in your head. If you believe the motion, if it will carry, if the motion carries, I'll reread it to you. You'll vote for it, and the village will adopt this position. If you vote in favor of Mark's point of view, then it will not carry. I'm going to reread the motion now and then ask for your votes for, and then I'll ask for your votes against. The motion is that this village believes that post-quantum computing should be prioritized for enterprise readiness. All in favor? It's looking good. All opposed?
Thank you, friends.
Thanks, everyone. The motion carries.
The motion is carried.
Thank you very much.